Well, we'll sort of pick up here where we left off. I really wasn't gonna, but I got a comment, and it kind of ties into where I was going before it cut off yesterday. That's a rather long comment, but he's saying, not sure how you can justify storming the United States Capitol and claim that it was a protest. Well, I'm not saying that. Nobody is saying that. You know, the protest outside was one thing, but actually going in, you know, and smashing stuff, well, but I guess if you want to, you can go and look and you could probably find this comment. But, you know, the interesting thing, okay, when I was actually watching something again today, this morning, I think it was Washington Post had a timeline, a video showing what went on and the sequence of this stuff. And what I thought was interesting, and I've noticed this on other channels before, there's this one video clip where there's a guy with the shield smashing that window to try to gain entrance. Now, when I first saw that video clip, the day that this went on, there were people right there that were denouncing that person as Antifa and were trying to stop him from doing that. You know, but now when I see that video, the audio of that portion of it is gone, and the clip has been edited to make it show, yeah, everybody was right there, oh man, they were, you know, but that isn't how it went down originally. You know, and in his comment too, he says about, you know, people going in and smashing and stealing, and but if you look, well, it's hard to find, you know, this stuff changes. Like I say, they edit the video kind of to lean it one way or the other. But these people that were in there, there's a core group of just anarchists, you know, that were raising hell and threatening to hang people and all this stuff. There was that bunch. But then there was a lot of other people that came in later that really weren't involved in this. You know, there was a group that knew where they were going and had an agenda in mind. Well, there's actually two groups. Like I said, there was one military sort of group that is still a bit of a puzzler to me, that had an agenda and went their own way. But they came in later, and like I say, like a snake through the crowd and in and out. But then there was this radical bunch carrying on. But a lot of the people that were in there were just people that had been there originally for the protest, and then they come down there and the doors are open and people are going in and they walk in and they very respectably went down through, they went through the rope, you know, the aisles and stuff. They weren't running amok tearing stuff up. You know, they actually kind of were surprised to find themselves in there and were actually in awe of being in the Capitol. You know, they weren't the radicals, but there was this group of radical people, which you'll find in any situation like that. And there are certain people who will, I mean, their whole purpose in life is to stir things up, you know, like you hear somebody, oh, hang them and all this stuff, you know, and the normal people that were in there, they wouldn't have any part of that, though people can get caught up in this kind of thing. But when they refer to it as terrorists, no, I don't see that. And as an insurrection, I mean, look what they did, how far they went. If there would have been a dozen rifles involved in this, you could have taken the whole thing. There wasn't that much stopping you. You know, once you got to that point, it was funny because there had been a warning from the FBI. Now, the FBI, they had got chatter that something was going to go down. Now, you have to realize these organizations are really jealous of each other. They really don't work together, you know, like the FBI and the Secret Service and all this stuff. They really don't cooperate. And the FBI at this point, when they knew something was going to go down at the Capitol, because they had heard definite chatter about this, but they figured, okay, it wasn't a threat on a specific individual, so they didn't feel they should get involved. Well, that seems bizarre, but they felt a little obligation to, I think, more to cover their ass than anything else. They did inform the security at the Capitol that something was likely to go down. And in response to that, the people at the Capitol actually sent home a lot of their security people, which is bizarre. You know, you would think you would increase the security, but they didn't. They sent a bunch of them home. And then later, when these people at home, these security people, see what's going on, they come rushing back. But by then, the situation had pretty well blown over. I mean, they got so far, and then they just stopped. You know, it's funny, because if this was actually an insurrection, like I said, they could have taken the Capitol. They were so close, a few weapons, and it would have been done. And as you know, because even like I said, these military appearing people had a mission that went in and did what they were going to do, and then they left. They didn't appear to be armed, though. Somebody had made a comment, oh, they bumped up against one and they thought they felt a gun. But there was no guns that I could see on the side of the protesters or terrorists, if you want to say. I mean, there was weird, you know, but like when people come wearing tactical gear, helmets, and carrying shields, I mean, that isn't protesting. There was some nefarious stuff going on there. But they didn't actually, you know, there was like the lunatic that ran off with the podium, you know, that crazy guy with the horns just acting crazy, you know. That's a lunatic fringe, but for the most part, there really wasn't a real push on this, like there could have been, which wouldn't have surprised me. You know, bizarre. But then they overreact and you go and you put all these National Guard there, which I don't know why in the world you didn't have those people when you knew something really very serious was going down. This vote that was going on was a serious thing. And then they get tipped that something could go down. And then they, not an individual, not a threat against an individual. I don't know what was going on there. But, like I say, these organizations really don't work together. Like the FBI and the CIA and all, so they have their own little jurisdictions that they're very jealous of. They don't really cooperate with information at all. I thought it was funny after they bring on all these National Guard and start putting up all this extra fencing and stuff. And really, like I say, if they were going to really do an insurrection, that was the time before all this went on. Now it would be stupid, you know, to do that. To try something like that. But there was a point in there where Nancy Pelosi, then she comes out and she's reviewing, you know, the troops, sort of, the National Guard that are there. And there was some little talk, and then they said that yeah, they're there to uphold the Constitution. That's what all like even these a lot of these retired police and fire, all these ex-military people that were caught up in this riot, which or even the protest, and people are jumping on them saying they're going against their oath. Well, their oath really is to the Constitution. It isn't to a political party. There's a big difference there. In fact, a lot of these people thinking, like an insurrection at this point would be upholding their oath. They refer to themselves as oath keepers. So there's a line there. And even I think Pelosi was well aware of it, because then when she goes back inside, her first question is, have these people, these National Guardsmen, have they been properly vetted? I think she thinks, people tend to think of the military as like robotic, and it isn't who's in power at the time that actually it isn't even the Joint Chiefs of Staff that control the military, but these people, like they have taken this oath to the Constitution, not to a particular person or a particular party. Because I can guarantee you, those guardsmen out there, they're doing what they see as their duty. But if the orders came, they would be, at least half of them would be perfectly happy to slap handcuffs on Pelosi. What their duty is different. It isn't controlled by a party. But I thought it was interesting that her thought was, okay, yeah, you look at them as a machine, and suddenly you realize, that there are different cogs in this machine. They are people. People are always, surprised that, like I say, the ex-military and these people that were involved in this, they want to hang them for treason. Well, they aren't looking at it as treason. They're, like I say, they're looking at it as upholding their oath. So you got to kind of tread carefully on that. But it's interesting. I don't, like this guy, he was saying that, well, if I can get at it without too much trouble. Now, there's other stuff taken up by, there's constant blue light specials going on there. But the guy was, he made a comment about that when the right does something and tries to blame it on the left, I don't really know. In this case, I don't see this being a right or left kind of thing. And I'm really not, well, I'm definitely not left, but I'm really not right. I'm not radical right, at least. I mean, I'm, like I say, I'm more libertarian. I don't really look at this stuff from one side or the other until like this, where you're not democratic anymore, where you're trying to get socialist. Well, then okay, that kind of piques my interest. And really, that's what they're doing. It comes back to that all thing about being, defendant foreign or domestic. We're kind of having the problem with domestic stuff. But interesting, I guess maybe I'll leave comments open on this one and let people have at it again. I think it's good for people to kind of talk these things out a little. And people were a lot more civil in the comments on the other video than I had expected, because people are really, one way or the other on this, and like I say, there are a lot of lunatics out there. But it's worrisome. Like now they're trying to really clamp down, because this particular instance, this hurt the right. This didn't help the right. There was no gain, nothing to be gained here, unless you were going to take it all the way. There's no gain in this. This only hurt them. So I really don't see that. When he says that blames this on the right, I don't think this was that sort of thing. I think you were dealing with some people who were thinking very bizarrely, and there's always people that want to get involved if there's something going on. They don't necessarily have a side even. They're just there to raise hell, and I think that's what it was. These people that got in, that were really causing havoc inside. But if you look, you see there's an awful lot of this where people are just walking around. They really weren't doing anything. I mean, they could think of what they could have done. Like, the one guy was hollering, "Burn the place down!" Well, and that was that instigator who was just an instigator. I mean, he's been involved in all this stuff. People weren't burning the place down. People weren't trashing things. There was nuts like the guy who walked off with that podium. The sense of this, I don't know. The laptop thing, I still find puzzling, but hopefully something will come of that. We'll maybe understand what that was about. But I like I say, I have a suspicion that was that the group that went in. They had a task to perform. They did it, and then they got out. And like I say, after that, I thought it odd that Pelosi had disappeared for a couple of days, and then she comes back, and she's just rattled. You watch her talking, and she is a nervous wreck. It could be that maybe she felt that, this was like a great invasion on her ground or her turf. But she is nervous, as it reminded me of a guy used to say that when he was working cattle and they'd get jumpy, he said they're nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And that's what I thought when I saw Pelosi talking. There's something she is freaked out about. And it could be to do with that laptop. Because people, they do tend to get careless with this sort of thing. And there's a lot of, she's been pulling stuff. She is really very much hated. I thought it was funny, like when the one guy is screaming to lynch Pence, what the hell, who cares? He's really not a factor in this. I mean, the real trouble always comes from Pelosi. So I don't know. Because if something really went down, she would be the one that they would be after. So I don't know. But like I say, you let it play out. There's nothing you can do about it, but you can speculate. But I don't, to say that this was an insurrection, then you don't know what an insurrection looks like. We've caused insurrections in other countries, like the Ukraine, and we're actually, we caused all of that in the Ukraine. And it's funny because now, of course, Biden, he's bringing back the people who promoted that whole Ukrainian fiasco, bringing them right back in. So we'll be back in there, screwing with Crimea again. It's going to happen if they actually have their way. But we got a long ways to go before that is settled. Not many days, but there's a lot in these next few days that's going to happen. But I'll leave comments open on this, I guess. Like I say, it wasn't bad last time. I get a lot of this, like I say, the blue light special where somebody wants to say something. But I'll just switch my SIM card over into my other phone and just let this ride, and you can hash this out. But what I don't want to see is people arguing amongst themselves. You can have an opinion, like this guy had an opinion. It's good to hear other people's opinions. But don't get to doing this wild arguing stuff. I mean, that doesn't gain anybody any insight into this. But it's good to hear, diverging points on this. But like I say, I'm not really right. I'm not really left. I'm really not involved in this except as a kind of a spectator in the thing. Because really, there's so very little of this that has any real effect in my day-to-day life. It's just a thing that's going on out there. Much like I watch things that go on all over the world. And if I make a comment on them, it's not that it's going to affect me. Until they start dropping bombs, I mean, that's different. But it ain't to that point yet. Though they keep pushing her.